Okay, good afternoon. Carlton is with me today for tea time to talk. And of course, we have tea. So I'm drinking, actually, today it's pretty chilly in South Florida as well. So I'm drinking a cinnamon tea. And I think everybody knows cinnamon is a warm spice, but it's a great antioxidant too. So it's a really good thing to drink, for anti-cancer, anti-heart disease, etc. How about you? You've got some cold weather where you are, Carlton, too?
I got cold weather where I am.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's ironic to think that it's cold in South Florida. I call cold 20-degree weather. What about you? What's
Yeah,
cold
no,
in South Florida?
we're not there. But for us, it's cold, 40.
I think that is, it's the most appropriate title for our podcast is tea time, because
Mhm.
it is tea time. I'm warming my body. As you can see, I have my coverings on and I'm rubbing my hands because it's chilly.
Yeah.
So now we're ready to talk.
Yeah, perfect timing. You're not going to believe probably, but I actually have a little space heater going here. So,
Mhm.
but we're not used to it. You were living down here with me for a while. You were in Florida, so you know what it's like down here. We run from the cold weather. We don't know what to do with it.
I know if I was in Florida experiencing this type of weather right now, I would be frozen. I probably would have icicles hanging off of me.
Yeah, that's true. So today we're talking about your experience with cancer, and I'm just so happy to have you here because it's been time now where you've been able to look back on the experience as well. There's a pretty
Yes.
famous saying that it's not the experience itself where we really learn, it's the reflection on it. And that's what's so nice for you to come today, as after some time has gone by because you've reflected on it, you've learned things but you haven't forgotten. And that's super important because even newly diagnosed patients will see that you absolutely relate to what they're going through too. So that's why I like getting you at this time. And I really appreciate you being here. If you could think back, like before diagnosis, and then, during that, you can let us know what your diagnosis was too. But even before, what was life like before you even knew that you had cancer?
Before I had cancer, I think I was an old man living in a young person's body.
Ah,
I was a tennis player. I played tennis. I exercised a lot. I worked a lot, but I had a lot of energy, so I didn't need that much sleep. I think I got my energy just from exercise, and I felt very fit.
mhm.
Um, and I think I was above the curve as far as my age group and what I could do physically.
Mhm.
So I always felt like I was younger than
Wow.
my chronological age.
Great feeling, I'm sure.
Yes. Um, and I know you said the word reflect back,
Yeah.
and that's something that, is crazy because yes, I do reflect back and I do remember and I do wonder how did I go through it, but um, we don't know how, but there's a way, and that will occur. You
Mhm.
just have to take day by day, day by day. I
Mhm.
remember what I was told even before when we were in our sessions before I had my surgery, as
Mhm.
I was leading up to surgery, how um, it would be a process. And it would be something that at some point I would look back on and everything would kind of get foggy. But
Mhm.
all those day-to-day experiences that I had when I was in the hospital,
Mhm.
when I look back on, I don't know how I went through all of that. But
Mhm.
now I look back in some of those days, I don't remember particulars, but I know everything that happened. But the day-to-day pain and agony and the sleepless nights
Mhm.
and all the sticks I had from all the different examinations and things,
Oh, yeah.
um,
Mm.
I really don't know how I got through it, but I did.
Mhm. Well, it's good for people to hear who are experiencing anything similar because you don't have to know, like, how am I going to do it? Even if it looks impossible, especially if you're not used to having medical things done or you're afraid of needles or, like you said, sleepless nights. Like, it's nothing probably that you've experienced before, but there's a way and it does happen. And like you said, you just go each day one day at a time, just deal with what's right in front of you. I remember those days before surgery because you went through a lot with treatment, first of all, but also just the idea surgery is coming, it's hard to know how to get ready for that, especially with your diagnosis. So your diagnosis, would you like to share exactly what it is? Just which part of your body had cancer?
Okay. And just to preface that, I was in my 60s.
Mm,
And I had never been admitted to the hospital, never been in the
yeah,
hospital in my life,
yeah.
never had no more than a tooth pull,
Mm,
um, vaccines, that type of thing. So surgery was definitely something that I had no idea how and what it would be like.
mhm,
But anyway, I went to the doctor. I had been experiencing what I thought may have been acid reflux, or maybe some reactions from maybe an ulcer I had developed.
mhm,
I was a bus operator,
mhm,
and of course, with our schedules, we were under the wheel a lot, driving a lot,
mhm,
eating on the go, a tight schedule, a
mhm,
long day, and short sleepless nights. So
mhm,
I thought maybe I had developed some type of um, gastric problem because I was having reflux and heartburn, and it
mhm,
seems that my food was getting stuck in my chest.
mhm,
So I had been to my primary care physician. I had been checked for um, acid reflux, and I kept coming back negative.
mhm,
But I said, Doc, something is wrong. We need to do further examination. So he
mhm.
sent me to a gastric doctor, and I had a um, endoscopy.
Oh, yeah,
They,
okay.
they put a camera down my throat and looked at the insides, and they found I had a tumor at my gastroesophageal junction,
Yeah.
which is right at the end of my esophagus leading into my stomach.
Mhm,
And of course, make a long story short, it was malignant.
mhm, mhm.
So at that point, I knew that it had to be removed. So we went with the process of setting up for surgery, setting up for my treatment.
Wow, so can I just interject for a minute in case anybody listening doesn't know? Like you said, the esophagus is coming down. So you eat your food, it comes down your esophagus, and then right before you get to the stomach, that's a juncture, like you said, and that's called the gastroesophageal or esophageal. There are different terms for it, but it's right there between the two. So it's affecting your esophagus and your stomach. But needless to say, that's where the heartburn, the reflux, and that's where a lot of function can be affected, if you have a tumor or have some cancer there. So that's, I have to say, it's probably one of the hardest cancers to go through, if not the hardest. But also very curable or treatable, but we'll get to that a little later, of course, what the doctors told you and everything. But that's a massive surgery to go through. And the treatment for all of that is really long, right? It was a long time you were in treatment, right?
It was for me, and I would say that my story is not necessarily everybody's story.
Yeah.
Um, I have talked to other patients that have the same similar type of surgery, the same cancer,
Mm-hmm.
and their protocol was quite different from mine.
Mm-hmm.
Their hospital stay was not as lengthy, and some of the other things that I've gone through, they haven't had to experience it at all. And
Mm-hmm.
then vice versa, they've experienced some things that I haven't.
Okay. Yeah.
So I will say that initially when I was given the diagnosis, I don't think I realized the gravity of it. I knew the word cancer. I knew that was a bad word.
Yeah.
But I knew some of the things that come along with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
But I never would have expected it to happen to me, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was given that diagnosis, I kind of just shrugged my shoulder and just said, okay, I got cancer. I think I avoided processing at the time. I think I wanted some private time for that, and I had to let it sink in.
Mm-hmm.
So when the doctor told me and my wife, I didn't react. I just kind of was numb to it.
Yeah.
But after on the ride home, as my wife and I were talking about it, it kept coming to the forefront of my mind that I have cancer, that
Mm,
I have cancer. And I was just like, wow, I have cancer.
mm,
And that night, I went to bed, still not, being that I hadn't had any type of what I would consider the effects of the cancer. I didn't, because I thought everything that I was feeling was just normal
mm,
acid reflux, so it was nothing related to cancer. So I didn't really tie that in,
mhm,
that these symptoms are the start of my symptoms for cancer.
mhm.
So I go to sleep that night, and when I wake up, I woke up hoping that everything was just a dream
Yeah.
and that that wasn't going to be true. And then I had to tell myself again, wow, I got cancer.
Mm,
And it started hitting me, little by little. And I knew it was pretty serious because the doctors wanted me to get started with treatment right away.
mhm,
I had some plans to to travel,
mhm,
and I had a conference that I was going to the next month, but
mm,
the doctor told me to cancel it and
mm,
get myself set up for treatment. That the longer I wait, um, the more of a chance that the cancer will have to spread.
mm,
So that was kind of scary in itself, but I did as I was asked. I
mm.
stopped all my plans and I began making plans for treatment.
Mhm. Wow. It just comes right in life, right? Right in the middle of life. It just immediately comes. And like, there's never obviously a good time, but still it just immediately disrupts every plan, just what your life is in general, and that
Yes.
early kind of, we call it denial. It's not like you're denying it, but the brain is really not ready sometimes to take bad news or news with gravity, like you said. And so you just don't really process, like you said, you're not really getting it. And to wake up and think, oh, it's not really happening. Sometimes patients even voice that, like, this can't be me, but like you said, eventually the acceptance and it settles in and you realize it. And yeah, and then plans you have to cancel.
I was at I was at the stage in my life where I was a few years away from retirement, and all I had been thinking about in my retirement was my first order of the day was get out, get some exercise,
Uh,
get some tennis in. At
mm,
that time, I was living in Florida, so I was looking forward to that
mhm,
sunshine. I like my short pants, I like my torn t-shirts, and I like to just get out and enjoy the sun. So I had my bicycle ready. I was going to the gym, I was swimming, I was playing ball, I was, um, like I said, I was into my tennis, so I had a full schedule of what I was
yeah.
envisioning my retirement to be.
Mhm,
But this changed everything,
mm.
everything.
That's unbelievable, really. But that's what we say, but it's believable. It happened. That's a huge change. So you had support people in your world. So I want to kind of skip to that for a minute because already you mentioned, your wife. And so now both of you have to understand the diagnosis and both of your lives are changed dramatically.
Yes, my wife was my closest support person. I
Mm-hmm.
did have extended family, my sisters, my brother, my children. They were all support, but my wife and I, we were in the home together. So
Mm-hmm.
I think we were we were of course the primary people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and again, as a message for all you support people, this is something that is traumatic for you too.
Mm-hmm.
My wife, none of us knew anything about cancer. I think unless you've gone to med school and happen to have studied medicine, we don't know all the ins and outs about cancer. We know the word, we know it's a serious affliction,
Mm-hmm.
but we didn't know exactly what to expect, and that was on both ends. I didn't know what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
Neither did my wife know what to expect and how to treat me or how to live with somebody with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
The doctor did tell us that it was going to be something that we would both have to. It would be a new experience for both of us.
Oh, yeah.
It would possibly bring some stress
Mm-hmm.
upon our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But if we work together,
Mm-hmm.
we will be able to see it through to the other end.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much what we have done. We've had some stumbling blocks,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, it depends on what type of caregiver the person is
Mm-hmm.
that is your support person. So it's very difficult for them,
Mm-hmm.
especially if they've never experienced having to take care of someone like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Absolutely. So you're starting to make me think about all the different hurdles, both within you. There are things to overcome here, but then there are external hurdles too. And so all of that, in the cancer world, we talk about coping. How do you deal with all of these things you have to change, even decisions, even emotions that come up, even how other people are. I mean, it goes on and on. There's so many things to deal with. And we call them hurdles just because they're there in the way, of us getting where we need to be, or us feeling peaceful, or us being able to manage. And so, but if you had to name like maybe just one or two of your best coping skills that you had, but you then realize, wow, I really need to use this skill I had, what would you think it would be?
Mm. That's difficult.
Can I give you one I've witnessed? So to get us started, because I've witnessed, just like we're witnessing right now, you're a very good communicator. And I would imagine that is extremely important just to talk to your medical personnel. You have to communicate how you feel or what your questions are, right? And then to your family, you had to communicate to them, this is what's happening, this is what I need from you, or I don't need, or I think communication, open communication must be really important, right?
that's important. Also, the attitude.
Okay.
Uh, as I as I process it with my family, I also process it with a feeling of hope.
Mm-hmm.
I know I was scared inside. I was more afraid inside than I showed outside.
Mm-hmm.
But as I process it with them, we just said that we was gonna get it, we were gonna do it, and we were gonna do it together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was one thing that the medical profession stressed as we went through the process, was how important it was to keep a positive attitude.
Okay.
Don't be filled by all the outside negativity.
Mm.
I mean, sometimes you hear even from people that are trying to help you,
Yeah.
the first thing they'll start giving you all type of remedies and what you could have done and what you should have done and what you can do. And they go back to the earth and try this and try that. And over here we do this and over here we do that. Did you could have, you should have. Well, I didn't. So
Yeah.
here I am now. So I got to deal with what I got now.
Yeah.
I can't, and now is not the time to try a whole varied things going into my body and
Yeah.
not really
Okay.
understanding what they're going to do. Maybe the process is too late. But
Yeah.
at the same time, since I'm going to be dependent on the medical field to help me,
Yeah.
I got to listen to them first,
Yeah.
and then we'll process whether or not some of those other things are good to put into your
Oh,
body.
yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up for two reasons. One, the first part about it is that people will say things what you should have done or been doing. And that's really not helpful when you're in the situation. I mean, I understand it's forgivable because they really don't, sometimes they have no idea what to say, which is why it's really good for even everybody to get more awareness, like today, like what we're doing. But they will talk about what you could have done before or you should have, or it's not important anymore. You have to deal with the situation at hand. But some patients can feel guilty, and that's not, there's no place for that. There's so many, many, many reasons for cancer, but the last thing you need to do is start putting any blame on yourself for having a diagnosis of cancer. For a lot of good biological reasons, it doesn't make sense. And then the next part of what you said, that you have to make a decision. If you're going to depend on your doctors, you can't just start doing all these other remedies and ideas. You don't know the interaction, you don't know the mixture, if it's going to be helpful, could be harmful. Not that there aren't some complementary things we now know are okay, but you got to really check that out. So that's so important.
one of the misunderstandings a lot of people had,
Mm-hmm.
because this was a cancer in my chest,
Mm-hmm.
normally I'll tell you 95% of the time, the first thing they will ask me, did you smoke?
Mm-hmm.
Did you smoke? And one thing we have to know, we have people that have smoked a predominant proportion of their life and never had anything.
Right.
People who hadn't smoked at all have gotten cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it wasn't lung cancer because it was in my chest.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they felt, I thought it was coming out of my lungs. It was the lungs I had the issue because it was
Yeah.
in my chest.
Mm-hmm.
But here we know my esophagus runs down through my chest,
Yeah.
and my esophagus has nothing to do with my lungs or my
Right.
breathing or smoking or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that used to upset me
Mm-hmm.
because I'm like, even if I did, it's too late now. I got cancer, and I
Mm-hmm.
have to deal with that.
Yeah.
So, um, as a sidebar, I did take a DNA test, and
Mm-hmm.
I found out that my family, I got predisposition to,
Mm-hmm.
um, what is it, abdominal cancers in
Mm-hmm.
my family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
On my test, it showed that I had some genes that were not exactly, I don't know how you said straight, but it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't enough to say, well, yeah, this is what caused it, definitely or not, but it did say I had predisposition. So as
Yeah.
far as I'm concerned, well, that was it. You know,
Yeah.
that may have been it. And I have had family members that have had other type of gastrointestinal
Exactly.
cancers.
Mm-hmm.
And I just never really thought about that because I was so healthy all my life.
Right.
I just happened to be it was a late onset for me.
Right. So I think that's so important too. It's worth saying that thank goodness we now have some of these genetic tests. We don't have it for all cancers, but it's very good in the sense that it reveals this is a genetic line. This is the predisposition.
Mhm.
And it helps to know that in when it comes to some of these illnesses, we break it down like it could be genetic or it could be lifestyle, like what you eat or drink or your stress or whatever. But the point is, it's really not about where to place the blame. It's about knowing what are the underlying factors, because when we do know, if one day we could prevent it, that would be great. In a lot of cases, we can't yet, but we can at least see this is what's happening. This is why. So, but so many people in the public, like you said, they'll immediately go on the lifestyle side. You should have done this. You should have eaten this. Did you do that? But it could be that it's genetic. And in reality, it's both a lot of times. It just
I
depends.
feel like it's
Everybody's
both.
different. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, but that was really good that they had that genetic test for you because it helped to show, what was going on for your family too.
And
So,
I think in my mind, it kind of gave me a little bit of, um, put me at peace somewhat, knowing that I didn't cause it. I didn't
yeah.
necessarily cause it by what I've done throughout my life.
Hmm.
Because I always thought I was pretty healthy, but I know that a lot of the processed foods we eat,
Yeah.
and a lot of things that we're doing is actually damaging to our health.
Hmm.
Fortunately, we normally don't find out
Hmm.
until we've already been damaged.
Exactly. But not only that, I still think it's worth saying that all the exercise that you did do and all the healthy things you had in your life could have held it off for a while. We don't know that, because it was later onset and, it definitely helped you recover. I'm positive about that, you
I
know?
was about to say, fast
Yeah.
forward, if it hadn't been for the exercise or the conditioning of my body,
Yeah.
this comes from the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
I probably wouldn't have made it.
Mm.
So I thank God for that. I was into exercise,
Mm-hmm.
and I advocate for anybody that's got about to go through anything
Mm-hmm.
to try to build your body up as much as you can because it will be torn down through,
Mm.
through some of the processes, whether you get radiation or if you have
Mm-hmm.
to go through radiation or chemo,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to knock your body down somewhat. So the best thing to do to offset that or to counteract that is to exercise as much as you can and
Mm-hmm.
build yourself up and prepare yourself to
Mm-hmm.
go through those things.
Yeah. Great advice. That's really good advice. And I just want to say before we move on, people who are listening, you're probably listening either on Spotify or Apple or YouTube, but you know where to find us. So if anyone has comments or questions, especially about that aspect, like how do I build myself up? We'll be here. Carlton and I are ready for any questions you might have. We'll either talk, contact you directly, or we'll do another podcast on it because that is so important and something you know a lot about. So do you feel like you've had a lot of experience now with the medical field? You didn't have to before, thank goodness. And since you have, I always hear a lot of respect from you for your doctors and everybody. I do all the time, even at the hardest times, even with such a difficult surgery and what you went through. But there must be some things where you see things could be improved for patients. Like, should patients speak up more, or should things change for patients? Or what would you like some people in the medical field to know, like from the patient's point of view? What would be helpful to know?
Well, I can say this, and that's from the standpoint of what I got from you and some of my other doctors, that empathy and compassion is very important. It's very important because no matter how the person projects themselves, you're dealing with someone that's very scared. It's a lot of unknowns,
Mhm.
and their persona may be one that they always want to portray themselves as being strong and fearless, and nothing can hurt me.
Mhm.
Behind closed doors, they have their own private thoughts.
Mhm.
And believe me, we're all human. And I know that we have been programmed as men and women. Men don't cry. Men are tough. We're the ones that's supposed to always be the protector and not the
Mhm.
protected.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we don't express ourselves in the
Mhm.
way that we need to.
Mhm.
Um, it's important to talk to your doctors. It's important to listen to them. And
Mhm.
one thing I know we could do a podcast on just the stressors,
Mhm.
just going the stressors themselves,
Mhm.
because that's another stress. Unless you already know your doctor, well, normally you're going to meet new doctors once you have cancer.
Right.
You're going to meet new doctors because you're going to go outside the realm of your general practitioner or your primary care physician, and
Mhm.
they're going to introduce you to specialists. Are you going to have to get into specialists, oncology specialists, radiology specialists,
Mhm.
and sometimes mental health specialists to
Mhm.
also go through this process? So um, these are going to probably be doctors that you have no clue who
Mhm.
they are, how good they really are. So you're going to have to do some research.
Mhm.
I think you're going to have to sometimes go with your gut feelings,
Mhm.
because any doctor can have a nice looking office. They can look very good. They can sound very astute,
Mhm.
and they can present themselves as if they know it all. But
Mhm.
you have to kind of go with your gut instinct on who you're going to choose.
Mhm.
I was caught up in that dilemma. I was in a dilemma between two different healthcare systems
I
that
remember
I
that.
had access to. But when I
Mhm.
went to the doctor, I liked some of the staff on one side, and I
Mhm.
like some of the staff on the other side. So I'm like, I don't really want all of one, but I want both.
Mhm.
And I was fortunate that that's what I was able to do. I was able to choose my doctors based on what I wanted.
Mhm.
And I think that's also important. I wasn't led or forced into one thing or another.
Mhm.
I got to make that choice myself.
Wow.
So therefore, I would feel that if anything went awry,
Mhm.
it wouldn't be because I was following somebody else's recommendation, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah. Makes
But I
sense.
had made those choices myself, and I felt good about what I did,
Mhm.
and that's what I went with. I
Mhm.
think if I had gone through a system where I really was being led,
Mhm.
my whole thinking process, my whole thought process would have been different
Mhm.
after I came out of surgery and I had to go through what I went through.
Yeah, yeah. And they say, partnering with your doctor, like actually feeling like you're together in some of the decision making is really important too. So that's hard to do unless it's somebody you trust and somebody you've chosen, could be very
And,
hard.
and I can say I had to have surgery. So I had a choice. At least at first I hadn't even considered any type of robotic procedure.
Mm-hmm.
And the first doctor that I talked to regarding my surgery, she compared it to and you pardon this graphic, she compared it to
Yeah.
being going in a slaughterhouse and seeing a bull that had been split open, a carcass. And
Oh.
she was saying, well, that's how they're gonna have to do you to get to all of that. And I'm like, wow. I mean, it was like, I don't think I want to go there. So immediately she turned me off. Because I
Yeah.
was thinking what I would have to go through, how they would have to go inside my body,
Uh-huh.
into my chest, split my ribs open to get where they had to get. And
Right.
that didn't that didn't sit well with me. Of course, that was very traumatic.
Yeah. Mm.
So I continued to talk to doctors and talk to other doctors. I found the doctor that I actually liked. He did conventional type surgery. He didn't do robotic surgery.
Okay.
And I knew that robotic surgery, I felt like that would be less, even though it's invasive, it would be less traumatizing to my body than
Mm-hmm.
conventional split all the way down or whatever, that type of surgery.
Mm-hmm.
So he introduced me to a doctor that was familiar with robotic surgery, that did robotic surgery, and
Mm-hmm.
they all specialized in esophageal surgeries.
Mm-hmm.
So that was another thing that was important. I had all specialists that were specializing in the type of cancer that I had. They weren't just
Mm-hmm.
general oncology surgeons. They specialized in the gastro
Mm-hmm.
type of gastro esophageal type cancers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow.
So I decided to go with the doctor that did robotic surgery, even though the first half of my surgery had to be done conventionally.
Okay.
So in order to remove my stomach was removed. In
Mm-hmm.
order to remove my stomach, it was done by cutting me from my backside, right beside my spine, up under my rib cage to take
Mm-hmm.
my arm. Now I learned some anatomy in this.
I'll bet. Yeah.
Um, that's when I found out that my stomach is really in my back and it's not down in my gut. What I thought was what I
Mm-hmm.
used to consider my abdomen was not actually my stomach. That was my intestines, and
Mm-hmm.
my stomach was actually behind my heart and my lungs. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know that. So now I found something out and knew that they had to go in under my rib cage to get to my stomach to bring it out. So they
Mm-hmm.
pulled my stomach out, laid it on the table, if you
Wow.
can imagine that,
Mm.
cut it out from my esophagus and from the what duodenum.
Yes, that's right.
They
Yeah.
cut. See, I'm learning that. Can't
Yeah, you learn
pronounce it,
a
but
lot of
I'm learning.
physiology and
But
anatomy.
they took my stomach out, and then
Uh-huh.
robotically they went in. Another doctor came in after the first surgeon finished.
Uh-huh.
I'm still on the table. Another doctor came in to put me back together, to pull
Wow.
my intestines up and connect me to what was left of my esophagus.
It's
So
so
therefore, in essence, I had a double surgery. I had two
important.
surgeries in the same day at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I was under anesthesia for 10 and a half hours. My surgery was
Wow.
10 and a half hours.
Wow.
Um, and I've talked to other patients who have gone through surgery, and
Mm-hmm.
none of them that I know of has had surgery for that length of time, nor did the double surgery.
Mm-hmm. Mm. That's a long time under anesthesia. And it's amazing what they can do.
It is. It is. It's amazing what they can do. And the thing about it, the doctor had said, well, I probably wouldn't know anything for a few days. So all I knew is that when I went in, I figured if I wake up, cause of course, if I don't wake up, you know nothing.
Right.
But when I woke up, which I was so thankful and glad to do so,
Mm,
I and I remember anytime you have surgery in your abdomen, the best thing to do and the most critical thing to do is to try to get up and move and walk and try to get the gas or whatever out of your system.
right.
Believe it or not, I tried to walk. I wanted to get up the same day that I had surgery. I don't know whether it was anesthesia, adrenaline, or what
Ah,
was going through me, but I remember waking up and trying to move
mm,
and wanted to get out the bed. And I think I attempted, and evidently, because I remember talking to my sister,
mm-hmm.
and they were amazed that I was talking. I recognized them and everything.
Ah,
And then I think, whatever, I went back out. And I
oh,
think I was out for 2 or 3 days
oh,
then, but
after that.
it was some kind of spurt of something.
Wow.
And I think it was a couple of days later because I was surprised that it was the same day.
Uh-huh.
I think it was about 6 or 7 o'clock that night. I had gone into surgery. Uh, they rolled me back about 7:30 in the morning.
Mm,
And well, actually, it was about 5 or 6 that evening that I woke up, or came, that I became conscious.
mm-hmm.
And I said some words, I saw people, and then I think I went back out. But I know I remember trying to get up and walking and getting out the bed.
Mm-hmm.
And I had all kind of things hooked up to me, put inside me and everything.
Oh my
But
goodness.
I pulled it right on along and sit down for a while. Then I got back in the bed and I was in the bed for quite a few weeks after that.
Oh my gosh. They must have been so amazed that you did that. They told you later what you had done.
They were. And as a matter of fact, I was in a teaching hospital and my room was where they started every day with the interns and the residents.
Uh-huh.
I was I guess you might call, I was the poster child. First of all, because of what type of surgery I had gone through, it was a surgery that's not performed. It's very rare. And
Mm-hmm.
like Doctor said, I had cancer that affected not one system, but two systems.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very rare. They hardly ever see those take cases. And I had gone through such trauma. But I think every day they came there and were basically amazed to see that I was still alive.
Mm, mm, wow.
I ended up I was in ICU for a month and I was in my regular room for about 2 weeks. So my whole hospital stay was about a month and a half,
A long
a
time.
long time. When I got out, I couldn't walk. I had to learn how to walk. I had to go to rehab.
Mm-hmm.
I had no strength whatsoever. But
Mm-hmm.
we'll get to that, I'm sure, later.
Yeah,
That's after everything else.
yeah.
So
Unbelievable. I mean, just hearing the impact of the surgery is it's astonishing what they can do, but what you went through. And then your body survived. And, like you said, you woke up and just like so happy to wake up. And then at least
I'm
you know
happy to
that.
wake up. And I don't know how much time we have today, but I know that I want to kind of talk about just the process of the radiation and the chemo
Chemo, we have time. So yeah,
and the
before we
combination.
get on to the aftermath, let's start there. Let's go ahead and go with treatment.
Well, the treatment I had to have um, 5 treatments of chemotherapy and 30 treatments of radiation.
Mm-hmm.
The radiation would be performed 5 days a week, and the chemotherapy would be done one day a week.
Mm.
So the first thing I had to do was to go and get a port inserted in my upper left chest area.
Mm-hmm.
I also had to go when I met with the radiologist. And all this is stressful because you're looking at these big beds, you're looking at all this machinery, and you know that this is something that you're going to be going through.
Mm.
They had to, I had to get fitted for a mold.
Mm.
They fit me with a mold, which is no more than kind of like a styrofoam pillow that
Okay.
they fabricate to lay you in so that once you get on the bed, you're lying in the same position, same exact position every time.
Uh-huh.
I got my first tattoo, so to speak, of my life, which is no more than two dots they put, one on both sides, so
Mm-hmm.
that they could zoom a laser into those areas and make sure that I was in the exact same spot, lying in that mold with my neck and a brace. I mean, in that formulated mold,
Mm-hmm.
lying on the bed in the exact position where those beams would shine on those tattoos, those dots, and that let them know I'm in the exact position where they need to when they start zooming in with the radiation.
Mm-hmm.
The radiation it took more time just getting prepped and set up for the radiation than it did for the radiation set. Normally take about 5 or 10 minutes,
Oh,
but
okay.
in and out of the process
Mm-hmm.
would take about 15 minutes. If
Mm-hmm.
that 15 to 20 minutes, and
Mm-hmm.
the first thing you do every day when you go in is state your name, your birth date, and what type of cancer you
Mm-hmm.
have, so that they know they're working on the right person, got the right mold,
Oh, yeah.
got all
Okay.
the information correct
Mm-hmm.
for your record.
Mm-hmm.
And you go in, you lay down, they set you up, um, and you just lay there, relax, and they'll send you in. Well, the radiation machine that I went through it's like an open donut, so it's open, so it's nothing that you have to get encased in. You
Uh-huh.
don't feel a thing. You
Uh-huh.
don't feel a thing. Um, and they give you radiation. They turn it on and you can hear it, and the apparatus will make circular motions around your body.
Mm-hmm.
You're not feeling anything. You're just lying on the bed.
Mm-hmm.
You go out and you're like, that was nothing. This is easy. It's gonna
Yeah,
be
okay.
okay. That was just treatment number one.
Yeah.
And mind you, um, later on that week, I had to go in for my first uh, for my first treatment of my chemotherapy.
Uh-huh.
When they did that, that's more trauma. You
Mm-hmm.
have a whole team of people that's working with you. I had that port inserted.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they had to come, they had to take my blood. Every day they have to take your blood. And
Mm-hmm.
it's infusion. I had a little slight fog there.
Mm-hmm.
Infusion is what they cause it when I had to have my first infusion.
Mm-hmm.
The cocktail that they made for me for my first chemo, my body did not respond well to it, and I reacted to that. I had excruciating pain.
Mm-hmm.
My chest started hurting. I had pain in my back, my side. I mean, piercing pain,
Mm-hmm.
and they knew exactly what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
I had to, so they had to give me some medicine to counteract the chemo. It took about I would say about 5 to 7 minutes to
Mm.
get my body to respond, not to respond, but to fully um,
For the effect of like to
get back to
counteract it,
normal, get
the
back
next
to
thing,
normal.
yeah, wow, that's
So
scary.
of course, imagine this is my first cancer treatment. I know what
Yeah.
I'm supposed to have to go through. And
Mm.
in my mind, I'm telling myself, how am I going to make it if I can't make it through treatment? How am I going to make it through this disease? So, of course, I broke down and I cried. I did. I broke down and I cried. How can I make it through this if I can't even get through the treatment? So they assured me that don't worry, we'll come up with something else. So
Mm-hmm.
all they did was they gave me another type of chemo.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they asked me to come in, I think 2 days later,
Mm-hmm.
and I was still traumatized from what I had gone through. And I told them I can't do it. I can't do it. Can you wait till next week?
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, I still was getting my radiation every day.
Yeah.
So the next opportunity I went in for my chemo and everything went well. And I had some reactions from that later on, which I can talk about later. But
Can I just say, I love that you advocated for yourself. That was one of the things that, we had talked about before. It's so hard for some patients, but you said, I can't come back yet. No, I can't do it. Like I know you knew that you were too vulnerable. You'd gone through too much. It was just too, but you were willing to do it. You just needed more time. See, something like that, you don't need to force yourself, right? It's fine to
Right.
tell them, I can't do this. I need some more time. And it worked out.
And again, is I give credit to the to that system that I was with,
Yeah.
that they understood that, and as much I mean they were, and I'm gonna have to advertise for them. It was the University of Miami,
Okay. Yeah.
Sylvester Cancer Treatment.
Sylvester. Yeah.
I also dealt with Memorial of Broward.
Mm-hmm.
Those systems, they both are very good. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I got my treatment. I put that plug in,
Yeah.
move on. But the University of Miami were great. I mean, they were very confident.
Mm-hmm.
The team, they always, one thing about it, they always showed their eagerness to help. I
Mm-hmm.
never felt like I was bothering them. I never felt that they were trying to rush me.
Mm-hmm.
If I had questions, if I needed to talk to them, they took their time and they sit with me every time I had it. Whenever I needed questions, I was uneasy. My oncologists would meet with me, the nurses, the doctors, therapists, everybody. So
Mm-hmm.
that helps. That goes a long way.
It's great. How it should be. That's really good. So that's a lot of treatment. So radiation, but after a while, you started, radiation got more difficult, right? The side effects.
Right. Um, as I was going through that process, the radiologist was telling me the types of effects that I may have, the burning in my chest.
Mm-hmm.
They kept asking me how was my swallowing,
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't having any trouble with my swallowing at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I had to get 30 treatments,
Mm-hmm.
and he said that he had warned me that at about half of my treatment, at about 15, 16 maybe treatments, that I would start feeling some burning sensations in my chest, maybe some tightening of my chest. They did give me some of the side effects or some of the repercussions of doing the radiation, which it may affect my heart and my lungs. It could harden my heart and lungs in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and everybody's bodies reacts differently.
Mm-hmm.
But at treatment 20, I'm still having no effects.
Amazing.
No effects. Now, I may have, and I didn't know whether that was radiation or chemo when I had, sometime I may have some regurgitation.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that radiation would cause me, between radiation and chemo, I was either gonna have diarrhea, I was gonna be constipated, one
One
or
or
the
the
other.
other.
Or
Mm-hmm.
maybe sometimes it almost seemed like it was both.
Yeah.
Constipated, once I get that out, then I got
Right.
diarrhea.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's one of the
but
that's
that
the
still
system that's
wasn't
affected.
very
Yeah.
bad.
Mm-hmm.
My body, as my immune system started getting affected, as
Mm-hmm.
the radiation and the chemo, I think, took hold.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think my red blood cells, my hemoglobin was getting low.
Mm-hmm.
I started having chills.
Mm-hmm.
I started sometimes being very tired.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sometimes my chest would hurt. I would feel like I had indigestion or heartburn.
Mm-hmm.
And when I eat certain things, it would just seem to get stuck
Mm-hmm.
and it would start burning my chest. And that was all part of the radiation. That was the radiation doing that.
Mm-hmm.
My voice hadn't been affected at that time. I still had a voice. I still had my girth. I hadn't lost any type of weight, anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
None of that. As a matter of fact, I was still exercising. I was doing push-ups. I was walking. I was doing all that. And no effect. Um, Most of the time, maybe one day, only for one day, may I be tired after I do after I do my chemo. Other than that, the radiation unaffected. But when I got into my treatment, 30, I mean, I would say 28, 29, 27 to 30, my last 3 or 4 treatments,
Uh-huh.
that's when I started having more of the chest pains,
Mm,
cramping. Um, I never got a sore throat,
mm.
but my esophagus, I could tell it was burning. My chest area was burning,
Yeah.
and my
Mm-hmm.
food was. I was having trouble with with
Mm-hmm.
solid foods, and I started having more diarrhea
Mm-hmm.
and or constipation,
Mm-hmm.
and that seemed to have gotten worse even weeks later.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that was just because the radiation was still in my body, the chemo was still in my body.
Okay.
That was, and I started my radiation in, I think, August.
Mm-hmm.
So once I finished my treatment, about the beginning of September, or the middle of September,
Mm-hmm.
my surgery was scheduled. I had a grace period of a few weeks, almost a month, not quite a month,
Mm-hmm.
but I had a grace period to November the 8th before I was scheduled for surgery. So that gave my body time to, I guess, whatever the chemo and the radiation had to do,
Mm-hmm.
it did shrink my tumor. I forget the measurements
Yeah.
of my tumor,
Mm-hmm.
but it did shrink. And I forgot some of the other process I went through. Of course, when you go in, you have to get staged.
Yeah.
They tell you what stage your cancer is in, and that was done through a CAT scan and a PET scan. And
Mm-hmm.
my stage was found to be between 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
It hadn't metastasized or it hadn't spread outside the esophageal walls.
Mm-hmm. Thank
So
God.
that was good. And that was, but the main thing is the earlier you find out and the earlier you get on working to eradicate it, the better your chances are.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow, it's just so, so, so much. That's the other piece of it, not everything you went through, but also how long, like that's over such a course of so much time before you got to the point of surgery, I think, so many people could go through an illness and then they bounce back pretty fast or go through even, something serious, but when it takes so long and you get one trauma after the other, on your body. It's unbelievable, really, how long you had to go through
And
so
and
much.
even though I had experienced these type of traumas,
Yeah.
I still was blessed and lucky because some people, by the time they find out,
Mm-hmm.
they don't have any time to do anything. They don't have time to process. They don't have time to think.
Yeah.
They have to get busy on getting it out of them
Mm-hmm.
right then and there.
Mm-hmm.
So at least I had time to go through the preparatory processes of preparing myself to get the cancer out. They did. They were able to shrink it to a point that they could do as least damage as possible to my surrounding organs.
Yeah.
I had surgery.
Mm-hmm.
When I did surgery, they um they got all the cancer out and they took out 17 lymph nodes
Oh,
around the
17.
surgery. They took around that area 17 lymph nodes. And I
Mm-hmm.
learned that the lymph nodes are like your defense is like a fence being built around that area
Mm-hmm.
uh, that springs up around the area
Yeah.
of infection to try to keep it from going any further.
Right. That's
They
a great
took
way to
out,
describe it.
took that
Mm-hmm.
stomach out, they took out 17 of my lymph
Wow.
nodes and they tested those.
Mm-hmm.
They only found a small trace of a cancer, a small trace of it in one of those lymph nodes.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very lucky
Mm-hmm.
in that regard also that it hadn't spread any further than that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. So, but I don't know if anybody can even in their mind imagine how extensive that surgery is. The stomach, part of the esophagus, esophagus, then the lymph nodes as well. And then how much weight you probably lost. And then realize I've got to learn to rehab, to walk again through rehab. And then eating you don't just start eating right away either.
You don't
There's,
start eating right away, and in my case, you don't eat with your mouth. You
yeah,
eat with your stomach
there you
because
go.
I
So,
was um I was placed on a feeding tube. That's something that was brand new to me to
yeah.
wake up. with a tube coming out of my stomach,
Yeah.
or not out of my stomach, but out of my abdomen,
Uh-huh.
which was into my, is that the large intestine?
Yeah, well, it went into your small intestine, but the lower part
Yeah,
of your small
that,
intestine, yeah,
yeah,
the jejunum. So yeah, you had a long tube feeding, but thank goodness you could do it. Just how are you going to get nutrients into your body? Probably some people listening don't even know how a person can eat anyway without a stomach. Like they don't understand that the food goes from the esophagus now into a little pouch and then to your intestine. But most people would think you can't live without a stomach, already. But you can. You had to learn that too.
yeah. Well, I'm a living testimony that you
Yes,
can.
you are.
It's different, it's difficult, in some areas. Um, I have to eat. When I initially came out of surgery, all I could have was liquid food.
Hmm.
Your body has to learn, your body has to learn how to it has to reconfigure itself in order to process your food.
Uh-huh.
And this whole thing I'm talking about, what you're looking at right now,
Hmm.
is the new me, the me now. A
Hmm.
doctor and I talked about that a couple of weeks ago. We talked about the now me,
Hmm.
and that's a whole nother podcast. Is the mental,
Yeah.
what you have to go through mentally after all of this,
Yes.
and especially when you look at yourself and you're 60 pounds. I lost about 60 pounds from surgery.
Hmm.
From the time I was in the hospital,
Hmm.
I was 60 pounds less than what I went in the hospital. 60 pounds.
60.
And we're
Unreal.
talking about within a month. So that's rapid weight loss.
Mhm.
It takes people sometime almost a year to lose 60
Oh
pounds.
yeah, definitely.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
did
that.
this
Oof.
almost in a few weeks.
Hmm.
And um, the only way I could eat was liquid.
Hmm.
My body, and it was still, initially, it was still going straight through me.
Hmm.
It was a lot of diarrhea, a lot of days of diarrhea. I couldn't control that.
Hmm.
Um, the only way I could have sips of water. Initially, I couldn't have anything in my mouth. And maybe I could get an ice chip.
Mm.
That's all I
Gosh.
was having because my body had to be reintroduced to everything.
Hmm. Hmm. So,
So I had to learn how to, um, well, I didn't have to really learn because that was just a natural occurrence with the machinery. It would feed me
yeah.
and they would have to come in and change and all. But further on down the road, I was going to have to learn how to use the same apparatus at home. I had a home healthcare people
Yeah.
that
Okay.
came.
Hmm.
I had to be taught how to change the feeding,
Yeah.
how to change, how to clean the tubing, how to put that in and out of me. At least I had a port that it went in, so it wasn't like I had to stick it in my stomach, but I had to learn how to attach it, how to
Mhm.
clean it, how to load the machine,
My
how
gosh.
to time the machine. And
Hmm.
that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
uh, but
Yeah. I think we could do
it's so
that.
many different things that you're gonna have to
That you
experience,
have to learn, right?
as you go along. But and you're gonna have good days and you're gonna have bad days.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as you wake up and go to another day, you're improving. Every
Mm-hmm.
day is an improvement, even if you're not feeling that good.
Yeah, it's so true. I would love to, we're not finished, but we're getting close to wrapping up. But I really want to do another separate podcast on just the nutrition part of it, like the eating, just everything from the chemo side effects, radiation side effects, everything going on with your stomach, loss of stomach, how to eat afterwards, how to do a tube feeding. I think that in itself can make its own podcast. And then another one called The Now Me, because that's another entire phase. There's so much to the experience. There's so much to share.
And I can tell you it's over 2 years that I've had the surgery, but I'm still learning as far as the nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still learning and dealing with nutritional issues today.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain things that as you go through the process,
Mm-hmm.
some of the things you may could eat in the beginning, you can't, your stomach seems to get more sensitive to
Mm-hmm.
certain other things. And as you improve on one end,
Mm-hmm.
something else that you used to could do, you can't do that anymore. So
Yeah.
you do find out that you can't sneak in those things that you like. Sometimes, you want to say, I want to have a cheat day. I won't tell my doctor about it, but I'm going to try this. Your body going to tell on you.
Yeah.
So you'll learn that you don't do, you don't try to even sneak in things that you're not supposed to
That's true.
have, or I
Yeah.
bet you can't do it. And
Yeah.
it makes you feel sometimes you won't do it. You
Yeah.
know,
So, when we do that, just so people know and they'll come back, we'll talk about even blood sugar and things like that, like what happens when you do try to sneak certain things in, or how you have to learn about timing and everything, because I know there are a lot of people out there who need that information. So, but before we wrap it up, because and then do those other things in the next two podcasts, I just want to say, let everybody know that a lot of the reason we're covering stomach cancer, first of all, it's important, but also it happens to be the type of cancer that the person who seeded the nonprofit I have had. And so there were a lot of similarities with his experience and your experience. And so I just want to say that this is not a new thing. There is information out there, but it's not really always readily available, what you could do or what you should do. So, when you contact us, and you can contact us at this website here, we'll give you information on support groups and webinars and things like that, not only for the patient, but also you mentioned caregivers earlier, information groups for caregivers too. So, I guess just, in the finality of just this podcast, either a flip side, a positive benefit, because you've come out strong on the other side. It's still a process, but something that you feel like this has been an opportunity as well, or how you go into life and weigh that out, the balance of being here, even though it's so difficult to eat. There must be something that you're feeling about that.
on the spiritual side, I just thank God all the time, and I know that I've been blessed to still be here. I think my purpose is to do what I'm doing right now, and that's to share with everyone
Mhm.
some of the experiences I've gone through and what they may can expect. But I will tell you, when I first got, I didn't even hit on that, but in the beginning, when I first got on my first podcast and my first Zoom, I was very reluctant, but I knew I had to find out some of the things that I would be dealing with, and the best way to find out what you're dealing with, what you're going to deal with, is to interact with people that have been through it.
Yeah.
That way you can, it's not about what somebody has read, it's not about what somebody has told them,
Mm-hmm.
but it's about what they have actually experienced. So
Mm-hmm.
getting it from what they say, you're getting it from the horse's mouth,
Yeah.
but you're getting the true, authenticated version of what to expect. So
Right.
I can say that I was very nervous about it when I got on my first Zoom call
Yeah.
with other cancer patients.
Mm-hmm.
They were in different stages. I was very new. I hadn't had any of the procedures. I hadn't had any of the side effects or the issues that I had to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And um, it was somewhat concerning to me. And I was thinking that, oh man, that's what I got to go through. I
Mm-hmm.
can't, I'm not gonna be able to do this. It was
Mm-hmm.
kind of overwhelming,
Yeah.
but uh moving forward, I did find that everybody's story was not my story.
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
learned a lot from those other patients,
Mm-hmm.
and it also helped me handle some of the situations when it did happen.
Mm-hmm.
I already knew about it, and I knew what to expect, so it didn't scare me as bad. And I
Mm-hmm.
knew that was just all part of the process. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that what I've shared today would do the same thing for you all,
Yeah.
and let you know that um, positive attitude, and just keep looking forward and keep looking straight ahead. Everything
Mm-hmm.
will work out fine.
Absolutely. That's so inspiring. If anyone gets nothing else from this hour, the fact that when you're speaking to someone who has been through it, that's really knowing it's not going to be exactly the same, like you're saying, we're all different, but there's nothing really more powerful than that. And seeing, just someone who's really been there means everything. So thank you so much for joining me today, taking this time and going through your experience. And, it's a lot to do it, but in the end, it lifts you. In the end, you're sharing and helping other people. And that's what's so really beautiful and meaningful about it. So we'll meet again.
It's
Yeah.
gonna get better.
Yeah.
It's gonna get better.
All righty, and we'll meet again 2 more times at least. So anybody who's here, again, contact us. You'll see on YouTube, there's a place where you can put questions and we'll watch it and answer your questions or contact us directly. Yes, we can always do a phone call and then we'll be back again. So if there are other topics you want also, let us know that too. And we'll work that in. So, all right, well, stay warm if you can. We're trying to stay warm here too. It's great to see you. Thank you.
All right, bye, everybody.
All right. See you soon. Bye-bye.